Well, I just got back from Guardians of the Galaxy, which, just gonna say right off the bat, I enjoyed. I didn't think it was anything groundbreaking in terms of what you could, I say that now, but given the subject material and what the filmmakers had to go through, in order to make it seem somewhat credible on the big screen, I think in that sense it's very groundbreaking. But in terms of drama, in terms of really heavy uh, emotional weight, then no, it's not anything groundbreaking, not in the slightest. But I'll explain in a second. Guardians of the Galaxy is based on the Marvel Comics team of the same name. It's directed by James Gunn, and it is part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The plot of this is basically in 1988, young Peter Quill, after just losing his mother, is abducted by this extraterrestrial group called the Ravagers, led by this blue alien-skinned Michael Rooker. And these guys basically procure certain items around the galaxy for the right price. 26 years later, Peter Quill is a member of the Ravagers, and he is sent to get this orb, this mysterious orb from some mysterious evil-looking planet. However, said orb actually attracts the unwanted attention of trained assassin Gamora, played by Zoe Saldana, who is one of two notorious daughters of the gigantic space being Thanos, and she has been sent to procure the orb for Thanos' second in command, Ronan, played by Lee Pace. However, she has her own agenda for finding the orb, which I'm not going to spoil for you. In addition, after supposedly deserting the Ravagers, two bounty hunters, Rocket Raccoon, and Groot, this big ant-like tree creature, are sent to get Quill. However, their brawl in the middle of the Nova planet, which is basically like this capital planet. After their brawl lands them in jail, they all agree to go to Gamora's contact, and split the reward for the orb 4 ways. However, it becomes 5 ways when fellow inmate Drax the Destroyer, played by Dave Bautista, I believe that's his name. he also wants to. He has a personal vendetta against Ronan. So that forms the basis of the plot for Guardians of the Galaxy. Right away, I'm just going to name some of the bad stuff with this. The first 15 minutes or so are actually kind of disorienting. And it's disorienting in the sense that you are almost immediately thrown into this very unfamiliar setting. I mean, you have all of these space creatures, you have all of these different worlds, and it's a lot to take in. And the fact that they're trying to introduce this whole galaxy, literally a whole galaxy, while at the same time trying to get the story moving, actually had me going, okay, well, who's what, why, who's that? Why does he want this? So that I felt was kind of an issue early on. The fact that there's a bit of an overload in terms of stuff we're supposed to take in early on, and I think it's easy for one to get lost and possibly get a bad first impression on that note. However, I will say this: once the main characters get to the prison, then the movie really gains its footing. It really does what it does best, which I will explain in a second. I mean, the plot smooths out all the information and exposition has been delivered, and we are just with these characters. We are with these characters on their quest. Okay. Another minor issue with it is the fact that this can be a very effects-driven movie at times. I mean, I'm not just talking about the fact that 2 of the Guardians of the Galaxy members are complete CG creatures, namely Rocket Raccoon and Groot. but also there are a lot of space battles. There were a lot of high octane chase scenes and fight scenes, and I think the camera just zooms in a little too close. I think if the camera had pulled farther back, then these scenes would have been more pleasing to the eye. And it also doesn't help the fact that there's a lot of stuff going on screen during these action scenes. So kind of like the beginning of the movie, there's a lot to take in, and it can actually get kind of laborious after about 5 minutes of this to have to take in all of these different ships flying, shooting each other without too clear of an idea of who is fighting who. I mean, we never really get get much detail in the way of, the Ravagers or the Nova or Ronin's guys. And the final minor gripe I have with this movie is that there are sometimes some jarring shifts in tone. Sometimes the film is trying to be a comedy, sometimes sometimes it's trying to be this very serious coming of age story, and the fact that they sometimes shift scenes between these two tones so quickly and so transitionless. Again, it can be kind of jarring. However, let me get to the good, because there is a fair amount of good here. First of all, the acting is very, very entertaining. I mean, Chris Pratt makes for a very likable protagonist. I mean, he's funny. He makes for a good everyman. He's likable. He's quick on his feet. He's competent. He makes a very good Star-Lord, as it were. Zoe Saldana is also very good as Gamora, and just the fact that they surrounded. Well, I'll get to that in a minute. Zoe Saldana really captures the deadly essence of Gamora, while at the same time really having a knack for the softer side of her at the same time. So I think that she found a really good balance in the character of Gamora. Also, my two favorite characters are actually a team of characters before the Guardians even come together. Those characters being actually the digital characters. Rocket Raccoon, voiced by Bradley Cooper, and Groot, voiced by Vin Diesel. These guys are hilarious. I mean, Rocket Raccoon, he's this hot-headed guy. I mean, he's kind of like J. Jonah Jameson in the Spider-Man movies, where he's just so obnoxious, but at the same time so likable. I mean, he steals basically every scene he's in, and the fact that this digital creature can steal scenes from these actors, again, kind of like with Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, is a testament to how far computer-generated imagery has come, and how far motion capture has come, etc., etc. And the same goes for Groot. Groot is kind of like R2-D2. Is kind of like this R2-D2-esque character, where he doesn't really have much in the way of dialogue. I mean, basically all he says is, "I am Groot." I mean, that's how he communicates. And Rocket somehow understands him. So to make a character like that very likable, or as likable as they do here, I think is an accomplishment. I mean, in my opinion, Groot is one of the most likable characters in the movie. I mean, he's just so innocent, yet so dangerous at the same time. So yeah, Groot is actually very good in the movie. Probably the weakest member of the Guardians is actually Drax. Dave Bautista is not the best actor in the world. He's not bad. Drax is not bad, but again, when you compare him to the rest of the Guardians, who are all very dynamic, who are all very comfortable, Drax just seems very stilted. At first, he's not very likable. He just seems kind of stupid at first, especially when he actually calls Ronin's forces and says, "Hey, come here, I want to kill you. Here's where I'm at right now." So yeah, Drax, and the very one-track mind he has, and combine that with the fact that again, Dave Bautista does not really give that passionate of a performance, or is at least not as passionate as you would want given this guy's backstory. Again, makes Drax the weakest character. Again, he's not bad, but again, when compared to the rest of the Guardians, he's just not as strong or as dynamic. However, the fact that they surrounded these guys who are by no means A-list talent here, because because probably the most well-known names here are Zoe Saldana, Vin Diesel, and Bradley Cooper. Those are the most well-known names in the Guardians themselves, in this team. I mean, Chris Pratt is not a household name, or at least not yet. And the fact that they surrounded this team of misfits with all of these fantastic ensemble actors. I mean, Glenn Close, Jaimin Hansu, Michael Rooker, Lee Pace, Josh Brolin, all of these supporting actors. Oh, and John C. Reilly's there too. I mean, all of these actors do a very good job, obviously, given their A-list talent. And the fact that they even surrounded these C-list actors like Chris Pratt with A-list talent, and the film manages not to feel disjointed or give off the feeling that we are missing something by not focusing on the better actors or the more popular actors, again, is pretty impressive, because Chris Pratt holds his own. He makes for a very good and likable leading man in this. I also have to mention the set design, which is very much in the style of a lot of Marvel's other films, except this time it's the best way I can describe the aesthetic of this movie is it's Star Wars meets Star Trek meets Flash Gordon meets Buck Rogers with a tiny little splash of Doctor Who thrown in there. It's a very odd world that they've set up here, and again, the fact that they've actually made this credible is pretty impressive. And that actually brings me to the one thing that was going to make this movie sink or swim for me, is that the tone, and how they really approach these characters, because this is the Guardians of the these are the Guardians of the Galaxy. By no means a household name, one of the more obscure comic book teams, at least in the Marvel roster. So, and not only that, this is probably the biggest risk Marvel has taken since the Avengers. Because A, you are introducing us to an entirely different team of heroes, but also it's one of the heroes is a talking raccoon who likes to shoot things. The other one is an Ent. Another one is a green Orion chick from Star Trek. Another one is this big muscular guy who's literally called the Destroyer. And the leader is this guy who calls himself Star-Lord. Okay, so there was no way that you were going to make this big Christopher Nolan character study-esque movie where you get real deep into these emotions. And I think that's actually where Marvel really hit it out of the park with this one. Is in playing it as a comedy, because again, I wasn't completely counting Marvel out on this one. I mean, I wasn't going to say, this is never going to work in a million years, because I said that back when they made Thor and Captain America. I said you were never going to get these heroes off the ground, but they did. So, but I was thinking, this easily has the potential to fail. I mean, the likelihood that this is going to fail is much bigger than the likelihood that it will succeed, because again, it's the Guardians of the Galaxy. It's completely ridiculous. But the thing that this movie does well is it embraces the ridiculousness. I mean, for the most part, this movie is played as a comedy. I mean, it's this very lighthearted action comedy, and it does that well. It's funny. A lot of the time, I really did genuinely laugh in the theater, because these very funny lines are delivered with very good comedic timing by these actors. But at the same time, it never really descends into the area of spoof. You never really get the sense that this movie is making fun of these characters. It's just that it's very aware of how humorous that these situations can be. I mean, the humor here is very self-aware without necessarily going into spoof or parody. And the fact that they were able to walk that fine line without really descending into either area, again, is a real credit to the writers and the actors of this film. Everyone involved with this film should be congratulated for actually for actually making the Guardians of the Galaxy credible, yet at the same time really embracing the more ridiculous side. And I think that's where this movie really shines. There are problems, yes. Like I said at the beginning of the video, there are problems. I mean, some of the exposition and stuff we are supposed to swallow seems kind of rapid fire, especially in the beginning and also visually in the action scenes. And also there's the occasional tonal shift, but aside from that, this is a good time. I don't really think it's one of Marvel's best. In no way does this, in my opinion, this does not top Captain America 2 in terms of 2014 Marvel movies. And also, I know these characters are not strictly owned by Marvel, at least not in terms of the movies, but I also thought X-Men Days of Future Past was better than this. So in terms of the movies that came out this year based on Marvel characters, I do think this is the weakest. But the fact that they actually made this movie without screwing it up, they made a good movie out of Guardians of the Galaxy, actually could potentially pave the way for numerous other heroes. And this has been talked about before. If you can make Guardians of the Galaxy credible, then the sky's the limit. Because really, what other heroes are as ridiculous as Guardians of the Galaxy? I mean, there are probably a lot, but you get what I'm saying here. I mean, legions of comic book fans may finally get a Doctor Strange movie. I mean, they're finally getting an Iron Fist adaptation in the form of the Netflix show. Same with Luke Cage. So, and also the fact that this movie did so well might actually give the guys over at Marvel some hope for the Ant-Man movie. However, again, I'm still skeptical about that, especially considering the departure of Edgar Wright. Yeah, overall, Guardians of the Galaxy is a very good time at the movie. It's a very good action comedy. It's, in my opinion, a very faithful adaptation of the actual Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't really know how comedic the comics are, but in terms of the set design, in terms of the overall aesthetic, I think it's a very accomplished adaptation. And of course, you can't really talk about one of these things without talking about the after credits scenes. And one other issue I have with the movie is the character of Ronan. He's not exactly a strong villain. I mean, he's okay. He's serviceable. I mean, but for some reason, he falls in basically in the same category as Malekith the Accursed from Thor 2, in that he's just one of those lackluster, I'm a scary looking bad guy, and that's it. So yeah, Ronan, he's not as boring as Malekith, but he's not anything special either. And again, it's a shame because these are good actors playing these virtually nothing characters. Because Malekith was played by Christopher Eccleston, and Ronan is played by Lee Pace. So I don't like saying that these characters are not well realized, but that's the thing. They're just serviceable villains, and that's it. You don't really remember them too much afterwards. When I think of what I liked about this movie, Ronan is pretty low on the list. But you know, that doesn't really take away from the enjoyment. All the actors do a pretty good job. I mean, even the more minor players like John C. Reilly and Karen Gillan, they all do a good job. This movie is a good time. And of course, you can't talk about one of these things again without talking about the after credits scene. And I will say this is a spoiler. Howard the Duck is in the movie. Yep, you still see Benicio del Toro as the Collector, somewhat of a larger role this time since he's in the actual movie. You see Benicio del Toro after his whole Collector's after his lair gets destroyed and all his creatures are running amok. This dog comes up and licks his face. This dog that he had previously collected comes up and starts licking his face, and off screen you hear some guy going, "Why do you let that thing lick you like that?" It's disgusting. It's gross. And the camera cuts to whoever was talking, and you see this digital recreation of Howard the Duck, which was very funny. I mean, I think the only reason I didn't laugh was because I was just agape. Like, Howard the Duck is in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and here's the thing: that 5 seconds, that 5 second cameo after the credits was more entertaining than the entirety of the Howard the Duck movie. Yeah. Yeah, if Marvel is now including Howard the Duck in their movies, I think they're feeling pretty confident, don't you? Yeah.